More than 2,000 years ago, on the Mediterranean coast of Egypt, there stood a place unlike anything the world had ever seen. It was not a palace built for kings, nor a fortress designed for war. Instead, it was a sanctuary dedicated to knowledge, a place where scholars gathered from every corner of the known world to study mathematics, astronomy, medicine, philosophy, literature, and science. Its shelves were said to contain hundreds of thousands of scrolls. Its halls echoed with debates that shaped human civilization. Its mission was nothing less than collecting all the knowledge in the world. This was the Library of Alexandria. Although no trace of the original building survives today, its story continues to inspire historians, scientists, writers, and dreamers alike. It has become a symbol of humanity's endless pursuit of wisdom and one of history's greatest mysteries. The story begins with one of history's greatest conquerors, Alexander the Great. In 332 BC, after defeating the Persian Empire, Alexander entered Egypt. Unlike many conquerors before him, he was welcomed by the Egyptians, who viewed him as a liberator from Persian rule. Recognizing Egypt's strategic importance, Alexander decided to establish a magnificent new city on the Mediterranean coast. He named it Alexandria. Situated between Europe, Africa, and Asia, Alexandria quickly became one of the world's most important trading centers. Merchant ships arrived daily, carrying grain, gold, spices, papyrus, textiles, precious stones, and ideas from distant lands. Alexander envisioned Alexandria as more than a commercial city. He wanted it to become the intellectual capital of his empire. However, Alexander died unexpectedly in 323 BC at just 32 years old, before his dream could be fully realized. After his death, his vast empire was divided among his generals. Egypt came under the control of Ptolemy I Soter, one of Alexander's most trusted commanders. Ptolemy understood that military victories alone could not build a lasting civilization. Knowledge was power. Education strengthened kingdoms. Ideas could survive long after armies disappeared. Inspired by this vision, Ptolemy began creating one of the most ambitious educational institutions in history. This institution became known as the Mouseion, meaning Temple of the Muses. The Muses were the Greek goddesses of inspiration, literature, music, science, and the arts. The Mouseion was far more than a library. It functioned as a university, research institute, academy, observatory, and scientific community. Scholars lived there. They conducted experiments, wrote books, taught students, debated philosophy, studied nature, observed the stars, and expanded humanity's understanding of the world. Within this remarkable institution stood its greatest treasure, the Library of Alexandria. Although historians continued debating the exact number, ancient sources suggest the library may have contained anywhere between 40,000 and 700,000 scrolls. Regardless of the precise figure, it was undoubtedly one of the largest collections of knowledge ever assembled in the ancient world. The rulers of Egypt were determined to collect every important written work they could find. Their ambition was extraordinary. Every ship entering the harbor of Alexandria was reportedly searched for books. If manuscripts were discovered, officials borrowed them, copied them by hand, and sometimes kept the originals while returning carefully prepared copies to their owners. Envoys traveled throughout Greece, Persia, Egypt, India, and other regions searching for rare texts. Kings were offered enormous sums of money for valuable manuscripts. private collections were purchased, religious writings were copied, scientific treatises were translated. Poetry, drama, history, medicine, mathematics, astronomy, geography, philosophy, engineering, and law all were welcomed into the growing collection. The library became a meeting place for civilizations. Greek knowledge mixed with Egyptian traditions, Babylonian astronomy, Persian learning, Jewish scholarship. Ideas from across the Mediterranean and Near East converged within its walls. One of the library's greatest achievements was its commitment to translation. Different cultures wrote in different languages. Without translation, much knowledge would remain inaccessible. One famous example is the Septuagint, the ancient Greek translation of the Hebrew Scriptures, traditionally believed to have been produced in Alexandria by Jewish scholars. Whether every detail of that tradition is accurate remains debated, but Alexandria undoubtedly became one of the ancient world's greatest centers of translation. The library also attracted some of history's most brilliant minds. Among them was Euclid, whose work, Elements, became the foundation of geometry for more than 2,000 years. Students around the world still study principles first organized by Euclid. Another remarkable scholar was Eratosthenes. Serving as chief librarian, Eratosthenes achieved something extraordinary. Using only simple observations, shadows, and mathematics, he calculated the circumference of the Earth with astonishing accuracy. His estimate differed from modern measurements by only a small margin. At a time when much of the ancient world remained unexplored, this achievement demonstrated the remarkable scientific thinking encouraged within Alexandria. The library also welcomed astronomers, physicians, philosophers, poets, geographers, engineers. Many dedicated their entire lives to research. Unlike isolated scholars working alone, Alexandria created a community where ideas could be shared, challenged, and improved. Knowledge grew through collaboration. The Mouseion provided scholars with salaries, accommodation, meals, gardens, lecture halls, laboratories, and places for discussion. Supported by the Ptolemaic kings, they could devote themselves entirely to learning, rather than worrying about survival. This environment encouraged discoveries rarely possible elsewhere. Alexandria became the intellectual heart of the Hellenistic world. Students traveled from distant kingdoms hoping to study there. Visitors marveled at its impressive architecture. Nearby stood another engineering masterpiece, the Lighthouse of Alexandria, also known as the Pharos, guided ships safely into one of the busiest harbors in the Mediterranean. Towering over the coastline, it became one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Together, the lighthouse and the library symbolized 2 different kinds of guidance. One led ships safely through dangerous waters. The other guided humanity toward knowledge. As Alexandria grew wealthier, so did its reputation. Its markets bustled with merchants speaking dozens of languages. Its temples welcomed worshippers from different cultures. Its streets echoed with conversations about philosophy, science, politics, literature, and mathematics. Few cities in history have concentrated so much intellectual energy in one place. Yet preserving knowledge required constant effort. Papyrus scrolls were fragile. Humidity, insects, fire, and age threatened every manuscript. Scribes worked tirelessly copying damaged texts before they deteriorated. Without their dedication, countless ancient works would have vanished centuries earlier. Each copied scroll represented an act of preservation, a battle against time itself. The rulers of Alexandria understood that books possessed enormous value. Unlike gold, knowledge multiplied when shared. Unlike armies, ideas could travel across generations. Unlike monuments, wisdom could survive even after kingdoms disappeared. For nearly 2 centuries, the Library of Alexandria stood as humanity's greatest center of learning. Its influence reached across continents. Its scholars transformed mathematics, astronomy, geography, medicine, and literature. It became the greatest symbol of intellectual curiosity in the ancient world. But greatness often attracts danger. Political conflict, war, religious change, accidental disasters, all would eventually threaten the library's future. How such an extraordinary institution disappeared remains one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. Did a single catastrophic fire destroy everything? Or did centuries of neglect slowly erase one of humanity's greatest treasures? The answers remain hidden within the shadows of history, and they continue to fascinate scholars to this very day. For centuries, the Library of Alexandria stood as the intellectual heart of the ancient world. It was more than a building filled with scrolls. It was a living center of research, discovery, and debate. Within its halls, scholars from Greece, Egypt, Persia, India, and many other lands worked together, exchanging ideas that would influence civilization for thousands of years. Every sunrise brought new opportunities for learning. Scholars walked through marble courtyards discussing philosophy. Astronomers climbed observatories to study the stars. Doctors compared medical treatments. Mathematicians solved complex problems. Poets recited new works. Historians recorded the achievements of kings and civilizations. The library was unlike any institution that had existed before. Knowledge was not simply stored there, it was constantly expanded. One of the library's greatest strengths was its organization. Ancient librarians carefully classified thousands of scrolls into different subjects: history, medicine, astronomy, mathematics, philosophy, drama, poetry, law, engineering, natural science. This system made it possible for scholars to locate information quickly and compare ideas from different cultures. Among the people responsible for organizing this enormous collection was Callimachus, one of the greatest scholars of Alexandria. He created an extensive catalog known as the Pinakes, often considered the world's first large-scale library catalog. The Pinakes listed authors, titles, subjects, and locations of scrolls. Modern libraries still use similar principles today. Without Callimachus's innovation, managing hundreds of thousands of manuscripts would have been nearly impossible. The library attracted some of the greatest scientific minds in history. Euclid, often called the father of geometry, taught mathematics in Alexandria. His masterpiece, Elements, organized mathematical knowledge into a logical system that remained the world's standard geometry textbook for over 2,000 years. Even today, many geometric principles taught in schools originate from Euclid's work. Another remarkable scholar was Eratosthenes. While serving as the library's chief librarian, he attempted something extraordinary. He wanted to measure the size of the Earth. Using only shadows, simple geometry, and observations from 2 Egyptian cities, Eratosthenes calculated the Earth's circumference with astonishing accuracy. His estimate was incredibly close to modern scientific measurements. This achievement demonstrated that careful observation and mathematics could reveal truths about the natural world. The library also became home to Apollonius of Rhodes, famous for his epic poem Argonautica, which told the story of Jason and the Argonauts. His work influenced generations of writers throughout the Greek and Roman worlds. Medicine flourished in Alexandria. Physicians studied anatomy more systematically than many of their predecessors. Some scholars believe that limited human dissections were performed in Alexandria, allowing doctors to better understand the human body. Although many medical writings have been lost, surviving texts suggest that Alexandrian physicians made important advances in surgery, anatomy, and disease diagnosis. Astronomy reached new heights as well. Scholars observed the movement of the sun, moon, and planets with increasing precision. They developed calendars, improved navigation, and deepened humanity's understanding of the heavens. Geographers gathered reports from travelers and merchants arriving from distant lands. Maps became increasingly accurate. The known world expanded with every expedition. Alexandria's scholars were not isolated from the outside world. Merchant ships arrived daily from across the Mediterranean. With them came travelers carrying stories, scientific observations, religious beliefs, and rare manuscripts. Every arrival offered the possibility of discovering new knowledge. According to several ancient accounts, books found aboard visiting ships were temporarily taken to the library. Professional scribes copied the manuscripts by hand. The copies were returned to their owners, while the originals were added to the library's growing collection. Whether this policy was always followed exactly as described remains uncertain, but it illustrates the Ptolemaic rulers' determination to preserve every important written work they could obtain. The library's scribes played a vital role. Unlike modern printing presses, every book had to be copied by hand. A single mistake could change the meaning of an entire passage. Scribes spent countless hours carefully reproducing texts with remarkable precision. Their patience preserved knowledge that otherwise might have disappeared forever. Life inside the Mouseion resembled a modern research university. Scholars received financial support from the state. They lived together, shared meals, attended lectures, conducted debates, worked on independent research. Unlike many intellectuals elsewhere, they could devote themselves almost entirely to learning. This atmosphere encouraged creativity and collaboration. One scholar's idea inspired another. Discoveries built upon earlier discoveries. Knowledge expanded generation after generation. For nearly 3 centuries, Alexandria remained unmatched as the greatest center of scholarship in the Mediterranean world. Yet, despite its greatness, the library existed in a politically unstable region. Egypt had become part of the powerful Ptolemaic kingdom, but tensions with neighboring states continued. Eventually, these conflicts reached Alexandria itself. One of the most famous events associated with the library occurred in 48 BC during the civil war involving Julius Caesar. After becoming involved in Egypt's political struggle between Cleopatra VII and her brother Ptolemy XIII, Caesar found himself trapped in Alexandria. To prevent enemy ships from capturing his fleet, he ordered vessels in the harbor to be set on fire. The flames spread through parts of the harbor district. Ancient historians disagree about what happened next. Some sources claim warehouses containing thousands of scrolls were destroyed. Others suggest that parts of the library itself may have been damaged. However, there is no clear evidence that Caesar completely destroyed the library. In fact, later historical records indicate that the library, or at least significant parts of its collection, continued to exist after Caesar's campaign. This uncertainty has become one of history's greatest debates. Was Caesar responsible for destroying humanity's greatest library? Most modern historians believe the answer is probably no. Instead, they argue that if damage occurred, it was likely limited rather than total. The library appears to have survived, although perhaps weakened. The centuries that followed brought even greater challenges. The Roman Empire gradually replaced the Ptolemaic kingdom. Political priorities changed. Royal funding declined. Wars disrupted trade. Economic difficulties affected public institutions. Without consistent financial support, maintaining such a vast collection became increasingly difficult. Papyrus scrolls naturally deteriorated over time. Unless they were regularly copied, they slowly crumbled into dust. Every generation required dedicated scribes to preserve aging manuscripts. If copying stopped, priceless knowledge could disappear forever. Religious changes also transformed Alexandria. During the 4th century AD, Christianity became increasingly influential throughout the Roman Empire. Some pagan temples were closed or destroyed. The famous Temple of Serapis, which housed a branch collection known as the Serapeum, was destroyed in 391 AD after imperial decrees against pagan worship. Whether large numbers of books still remained there at that time is uncertain. Some historians believe many scrolls had already vanished centuries earlier. Others argue that valuable collections may indeed have been lost during these events. The historical evidence is incomplete. Adding further complexity, medieval writers later claimed that the remaining library was destroyed during the Arab conquest of Alexandria in 642 AD. According to this famous story, Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab allegedly ordered the books burned because if they agreed with the Quran, they were unnecessary, and if they disagreed, they were dangerous. However, most modern historians reject this account as unreliable, noting that it first appeared several centuries after the conquest and lacks support from contemporary sources. Today, scholars generally agree on one important conclusion. The Library of Alexandria was probably not destroyed in one dramatic event. Instead, it likely declined gradually over several centuries. Wars, political instability, economic hardship, neglect, religious conflicts, changing governments. Together, these forces slowly erased one of humanity's greatest collections of knowledge. Exactly how much was lost, and exactly when, remains one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. The disappearance of the library continues to raise haunting questions. How many scientific discoveries vanished forever? How many works of literature disappeared without a trace? What ideas were lost before they could inspire future generations? These questions have fascinated historians for centuries. And although the original library is gone, its spirit, the belief that knowledge should be collected, preserved, and shared, continues to shape universities, research institutions, and libraries around the world. The original Library of Alexandria has long since disappeared, but its legacy has never truly faded. Although its walls crumbled and its scrolls vanished, the idea it represented, the belief that all human knowledge should be collected, preserved, and shared, continues to inspire the modern world. For centuries, people have wondered what was lost. How many books disappeared forever? How many discoveries were never passed down? How much history vanished before future generations could read it? These questions remain impossible to answer. Ancient writers claimed the library once contained anywhere between 40,000 and 700,000 scrolls. The exact number is unknown, but historians agree it was one of the largest collections of written knowledge in the ancient world. Its shelves likely contained works on mathematics, astronomy, medicine, engineering, geography, philosophy, poetry, drama, politics, religion, and history. Many of those writings survive today only because copies were made elsewhere. Others disappeared completely. Among the greatest tragedies is the loss of countless ancient books whose titles we know, but whose contents have vanished forever. Tragic Greek tragedies, Egyptian histories, scientific treatises, mathematical research, philosophical debates, travel accounts, engineering manuals, medical observations. Entire fields of knowledge may have been partially or completely erased. Some historians believe the library preserved works from civilizations even older than Greece, including Egypt, Babylon, Persia, and possibly India. If true, the disappearance of those manuscripts represents one of humanity's greatest cultural losses. Yet it is important to separate historical evidence from popular myths. A common belief is that the destruction of the library suddenly plunged the world into a dark age. Most historians disagree. Knowledge did not disappear overnight. Many important books already existed in other libraries throughout the Mediterranean. Scholars continued working in Athens, Rome, Constantinople, Antioch, and later in the great centers of learning of the Islamic world. The loss of Alexandria was devastating, but it did not erase all ancient knowledge. Instead, it marked the gradual decline of one of history's greatest intellectual institutions. Ironically, many ideas developed in Alexandria survived because later civilizations preserved them. During the Islamic Golden Age, scholars translated Greek scientific and philosophical works into Arabic. Cities such as Baghdad, Cairo, and Cordoba became major centers of learning. Muslim scholars preserved, studied, and expanded upon the works of Euclid, Ptolemy, Galen, Aristotle, and many others. Centuries later, many of these texts were translated into Latin, helping spark the European Renaissance. In this way, the intellectual spirit of Alexandria continued long after the library itself had disappeared. Modern archaeology has revealed remarkable discoveries throughout Alexandria. Ancient streets, royal palaces, harbors, statues, temples, even underwater ruins lying beneath the Mediterranean Sea. However, despite decades of excavation, archaeologists have never discovered the original library building with certainty. The exact location remains unknown. Some scholars believe it was destroyed beneath later Roman and medieval construction. Others think earthquakes or changes in the coastline buried its remains. Until definitive evidence is found, the library's precise location remains one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. In 2002, Egypt sought to honor this extraordinary legacy by opening the Bibliotheca Alexandrina, a modern library built near the ancient city's waterfront. Although it is not the original Library of Alexandria, it serves as a tribute to its mission. Today, it contains millions of books, museums, research centers, exhibition halls, and advanced digital archives. Scholars from around the world visit to study, collaborate, and continue the pursuit of knowledge that began more than 2,000 years ago. The Bibliotheca Alexandrina symbolizes humanity's determination to rebuild what history once lost. The story of the library also teaches an important lesson. Knowledge is fragile. Books can burn, buildings can collapse, empires can fall. But ideas have the power to survive if people choose to preserve them. Throughout history, countless individuals risked their lives copying manuscripts by hand, protecting libraries during wars, and preserving ancient texts for future generations. Without their efforts, much of human history would have been forgotten. The Library of Alexandria reminds us that civilization depends not only on armies or wealth, but also on education, curiosity, and the free exchange of ideas. Every great scientific discovery builds upon earlier knowledge. Every invention depends upon generations of learning. Every civilization leaves behind ideas that future generations inherit. Perhaps this is the library's greatest legacy, not simply the scrolls it once contained, but the belief that knowledge belongs to all humanity. Today, modern libraries store billions of books, universities educate millions of students, digital archives preserve information that can be accessed instantly from almost anywhere on Earth. In many ways, the dream of the Library of Alexandria has become larger than its founders could ever have imagined. Yet the mystery remains. What exactly was lost? What forgotten discoveries were written on scrolls that no longer exist? Did unknown scientists describe inventions centuries ahead of their time? Did historians record civilizations now completely forgotten? We may never know. History does not preserve every answer. Sometimes it leaves behind only questions. That uncertainty is what makes the Library of Alexandria one of history's greatest mysteries. It represents both the extraordinary achievements of human civilization and the heartbreaking reality that knowledge can disappear. More than 2,200 years after its founding, the library continues to inspire historians, archaeologists, scientists, writers, and readers around the world. Its story reminds us that civilizations are remembered not only by the monuments they build, but by the knowledge they preserve. The shelves of the original library may now be empty. Its scrolls may have turned to dust. Its halls may have vanished beneath the streets of modern Alexandria. But its spirit lives on wherever people seek truth, ask questions, protect knowledge, and pass wisdom from one generation to the next. The Library of Alexandria may be lost forever. Its mission never was.